Welcome to another episode of The Case For. I'm your host, Matt Campobasso. Today, we're going to try something new, something fun, something that feels a little bit like sitting next to a warm fire after spending hours sledding and playing in the Chicago snow. I call it Versus. It's the first time we're doing it here on The Case For, but it won't be the last. Essentially, it's two cases being made at the same time, one by me and one by a guest. And for the purposes of this episode, this means two movies, one winner. No ties. None of this. They're both great in different ways. Only one will wear the crown of the definitive Christmas movie. For a showdown this big, I needed to call in the big guns. I needed someone who loves movies even more than I do. So, joining me for this inaugural Versus episode of The Case For is my longtime friend, a former colleague of about a decade, an incredibly talented lawyer, one of my favorite human beings ever, and a man who has forgotten more about cinema than most of us will ever learn, John Hammerly. John, welcome to the show. So incredibly great to have you here.
What up, Matt? Good to be here. There's my daughter in the background.
Amazing.
So we're already getting good content.
This is real life.
There.
This is not life. Scripted, even though everything I just read was scripted.
Look, if you thought I was a pro, get ready, because I am not. And, it's funny, like the forgetting more about movies is interesting because I have so much in there in the brain about movies that I lose everything else. Names, dates, work, life. It's all gone.
It's all gone. Just movies. Well, listen, then it sounds like I invited the right guy here for the reasons that, just for the listeners, you and I have known each other since 2008. In fact, when I joined a law firm back in that year, March of that year, you and another gentleman, a good friend of ours, Matt Kramer, took me out to my first day lunch. And 17 years later, and here we are. We've seen movies together. If you remember, we started a podcast about movies in 2010, which we promptly abandoned. We've made short films, one of which actually is called Froyo. It's my favorite. And I'd make a case for it as a holiday classic. So, that was a lot of fun. And I remember filming in the freezing cold temperatures of Chicago in December. Such a good memory. John, movies have played a significant role in our friendship. So it seems appropriate that movies are why we are here together today. And I think, after this, we'll probably never talk again.
It's a full out warfare today. So get ready.
Perfect. So listen, before I set the stage for today's Versus edition of The Case For, I'd love for you to tell our listeners just a little bit about your love of film, when it started, favorite movies, favorite actors, favorite directors, just so our audience has a bit of an idea around your film sensibilities.
Yeah, so I guess it started by my uncle, Bob, who's an attorney down in Indianapolis. It took me when I think the earliest memory is maybe two years old. I saw The Secret of Nim in theaters with Mrs. Brisby and
Classic.
Nicodemus. Scarred me as a child. Some of the Don Bluth animated imagery in there was terrifying, but I loved it. And then I think we followed up that with like Return of the Jedi in '83, and it was all, I was hooked at that point.
Yeah, you don't look back after the Return of the Jedi.
No. And so I was the kid who was buying, I remember when we got our first VHS in '84, like I was on the early side of getting that. I was pushing my dad to get one for us, and then
probably cost like $100,
maybe more, right? Like,
for one tape. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember a couple tapes that we lost from Blockbuster back in the day, and it was not inexpensive. So real quick, I'm gonna kind of hit you with a couple rapid fire topics or categories, and I want you to respond quickly because I really want to get to this Versus. But I hope that each of our listeners is watching this. We have video if you're watching on Spotify. It's accompanied by video. You can also find this on YouTube. But for those of you just listening on audio, I have to describe, John is wearing a Back to the Future Christmas sweater. It's incredible. Or holiday sweater, I guess, is better. But it's incredible. And it's the John Hammerly that I've come to know and love. So just embracing your full, film freak. So, all right, John, favorite movie of all time?
Back to the Future. Okay. So it's fitting.
Favorite actor of all time?
Tommy Cruise, baby.
Favorite director?
Steven Spielberg.
All right, perfect. I think those three things, you kind of take that Venn diagram and people shouldn't have a decent sense of who you are. So listen, with that and without further ado, let's just jump into it. So for today, we've got Home Alone versus A Christmas Story. Two giants of holiday cinema, two movies that shape childhoods, two films that take over the month of December like clockwork. I will be making the case for Home Alone as the definitive Christmas movie. John will be making the case for A Christmas Story as the definitive Christmas movie. We're each going to give an opening statement. Then we're going to talk through 5 categories, each of which takes a look at what makes a great Christmas movie through a different lens. We're not going to do objections this episode. Lawyers love objections, but it's the holiday season, so let's just love each other. And then we're going to do closing arguments. Finally, we're going to close with 5 rapid fire questions from me to John on the topic of Christmas films. And if all goes as planned, by the end, we will have a winner or not. Who knows? So,
Or
with
tie.
that, let's get into it. John, I would love to say you're the guest, so you're going to open first, but this is my podcast, so I'm going to do the honors here. I'm really excited about this one. John and I, for those of you listening who don't know us as humans, we are both lawyers. We're both litigators at a law firm for about a decade. And John and I, although we have a lot of things in common, are incredibly different types of lawyers. First of all, John is brilliant. He's an incredible writer. He's a great orator. John is like a great jazz musician. He just kind of sits down and he tells you what he thinks, and it's incredible. I am one of those guys that kind of chips away and sits down and writes out every word. So I wouldn't be surprised if those of you listening pick up a little bit about our characteristics of each of us as we go. So with that, I'm going to speak to the jury about the definitive Christmas movie. Home Alone was written by John Hughes and directed by Chris Columbus, an absolutely legendary combo. Hughes gave it heart, the humor, and the childhood wish fulfillment. Columbus gave it warmth, magic, and the perfect holiday tone. To me, it's basically the 1990s version of assembling the movie Avengers. But what I want to talk about here today is that Home Alone isn't just a movie, it's a feeling. It's that unmistakable click your brain does as soon as the holiday season begins. It's not when Starbucks rolls out the red cups or when Mariah Carey starts to defrost. I mean that very specific moment when you're sitting on the couch after Thanksgiving dinner, your belt is doing its best to hold on, the house is empty except for some leftovers on the table, and you throw on something comforting because you're finally letting yourself ease into the season. And for me, and for a lot of people, that something comforting is Home Alone. It's the opening bell of Christmas. It's the movie equivalent of flipping the switch on a string of lights for the first time that year. But what makes it the Christmas movie? Why does this one movie from 1990 still hit so hard across generations? Why does it feel like a tradition, even if you don't intentionally make it one? Well, part of that is pure, unmistakable atmosphere. This movie looks like Christmas, not the sleek, hyper stylized Hallmark version, and not the modern, minimal gold and white aesthetic. No, this is like old school, big suburban family Christmas. The red and green explosion inside the McAllister house, the snow falls right when you want it to, the lights glowing in every hallway. Then you add on top of that the John Williams score, this magical soaring blend of nostalgia and adventure, and suddenly every single frame is dipped in the Christmas spirit. It's one of the few movie scores that instantly puts you in the holiday mood, even if you're watching it in July. You hear somewhere in my memory, and you can practically smell pine needles and cookie dough. But what I really think pushes Home Alone into that top tier, what makes it more than just a fun movie with great music and memorable scenes, is the emotional journey hiding inside of it amidst all the chaos. It's not about a kid setting booby traps for burglars. It's a kid who feels misunderstood, dismissed, too small in a big family. A kid who thinks being alone is the solution until he actually gets what he wished for. And suddenly he has to face fear, loneliness, responsibility, and the ache of missing the people who drive him crazy. To me, that's Christmas. That's growing up, and that's family in all of its messy glory. And then, and this is my favorite part of Home Alone, as I've gotten older, we've got old man Marley. I mean, come on. You start the movie thinking he's a serial killer, and by the time we reach that quiet church scene, maybe the warmest scene in the whole film, you're watching this older man wrestle with regret, fear, the weight of time, and the hope of reconciliation. And it's Kevin, this 8-year-old, who tells him it's not too late. That moment in a movie full of pratfalls and paint cans somehow feels to me like the heart of the holidays. Home Alone has that unique ability to make you laugh until you can't breathe and make your throat tighten a little bit 2 scenes later. It speaks to the kid in you, the adult in you, the parent in you, the lonely part of you, the nostalgic part of you. And it does all of that in 100 minutes that somehow never gets old, no matter how much you watch it. And maybe that's the real reason it's become a ritual. We don't just rewatch Home Alone, we return to it. Every December, like clockwork. It's familiar, it's comforting, it's funny in the same places and touching in the same places. And each time, depending on where you are in life, you see yourself in someone different. Kevin, his parents, Marley, even his crazy siblings. It grows with you and it grows with your family. So yeah, Home Alone is a movie, but it's also a doorway into a season. It's the spirit of home with all its noise and frustration and heart. So that's why I think Home Alone is the definitive Christmas movie. Not because it's perfect, not because it's the flashiest, but because it captures what the holiday season feels like. It's warmth, it's chaos, it's longing, it's laughter, and it's the belief that reconciliation is possible even when it feels too late. And it's the one movie that year after year helps us step back into the magic. All right, John, that's what I've got on Home Alone. What do you have for us on A Christmas Story?
Well, it's a very spirited argument on Home Alone, I gotta say. You make a lot of good points, and I will throw out just for everybody listening this, and you touched upon it with John Williams' score. But if you take out that score, I don't think we have anywhere near a classic that has
Really?
stood the test of time. I think that score is one of the most instrumental scores that elevated that movie above and beyond what it could have been. Because otherwise, it's just a slapsticky, burglars getting hit in the face with paint cans. And yeah, there's Marley, but like Williams really brings that home for me. So I love Home Alone. I could easily be convinced, but when I close my eyes and I think definitive Christmas movie, as you threw out to me, I was debating whether I should agree with you on Home Alone. And then I just thought about it and I almost felt lame that A Christmas Story was the choice I gave you because it just feels so obvious that A Christmas Story is the definitive Christmas movie. I mean, there's only one film out there that has cable stations devoting 24 hours a day repeatedly during the holiday season where you can just come in and come out and see a particular vignette that you're particularly fond of and it requires it's eminently rewatchable. And so as I was thinking it just seems to be the obvious choice. Now I think Christmas Story has a number of things going for it, apart from the sheer rewatchability and slavish devotion that TNT and TBS have shown for it over the years. But let's start with the perfectly textured holiday atmosphere that it's got going for it, right? You've got the Midwestern snow, you've got department store Santas, you've got fragile ornaments, or should I say fragile ornaments. You've got the glow of a living room tree. You've got neighborhood bullies. You've got gifts under the tree. You've got parades. I mean, there are so much iconography of the season that A Christmas Story attaches to itself. You've got the school teacher gifts. I mean, there's a ton in that movie, frame for frame, and so that's one reason I think it stands the test of time. Another is the
No.
family dynamics at play. Very humane, very subtle. This is not people you don't recognize on screen. These are messy, loving, relatable, recognizable parents and kids who feel like people and not caricatures, which is important. But it's broad enough that anybody can, recognize themselves in these characters. It's also super funny and quotable, and a lot of it's not slapstick. It's just situational or verbal. And you've got the one of the co-screenwriters is Gene Shepard, who the book is based on. I can't remember the title of the book. In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash is the book that A Christmas Story is based on. And so Gene Shepard actually does the narration for the film, and it's very wry and witty. And there are specific lines. If you close your eyes, you can just picture Gene Shepard saying them. Red Ryder BB gun. The mere mention of that phrase should conjure feelings of nostalgia and Christmas. And then you've got the emotional core, right? That A Christmas Story brings to the table. It's rooted in like childhood longing, small, tender gestures that feel, small rather than grandiose, but are super touching. And then I've kind of alluded to it with the 24-hour marathons, but rewatchable and cultural impact. I mean, it's got iconic imagery, with Ralphie and his pink bunny costume and the pole licking, getting stuck to it. I mean, I, I might just end for the all the cool kids in the crowd listening that only one movie this holiday season has a Raising Cane's promotional tie-in where you have the cane dog looking like Ralphie, and that's A Christmas Story, and that's why it's the definitive Christmas movie because Raising Cane's says so.
I mean, that's
That's all
hard
I
to
got.
argue with that. Listen, I think if we were here talking about what Christmas film or what holiday films bring about the most nostalgia, it's A Christmas Story. Absolutely. I don't think Home Alone presents an experience that any of us can really say, oh, I can directly relate that to something I've experienced. Maybe moments or emotions, but definitely not the nostalgia of A Christmas Story. So listen, I think, Raising Cane's tie-in aside, and you did an amazing job as the amazing trial lawyer I knew you to be of touching on the evidence. So let's jump into the evidence a little bit more in depth now. So we've got 5 categories. You hit on all of them. I've broken this down into those 5 categories because I think they capture what is really necessary to make a great holiday film. So let's go through these, have a bit of a back and forth in support of our respective films, and let's see how this works. So you mentioned holiday atmosphere, right? Category one. Home Alone, as I said, is like a warm blanket. You think about the first shot of Home Alone and you think about that unmistakable feeling of it's December, it's the holidays, and there's lights in every room, snow piling up outside. The McAllister house looks like it was decorated by the spirit of Christmas. Even before anything happens, you're just like, it's Christmas time. And I know we'll say his name a few more times. We're talking about John Williams here, one of the greats. And he doesn't just score the movie, he creates, I think, the foundation that everything else sits on in that film. So every hallway, every room, every street in that movie looks and sounds like the exact moment the holidays really begin. It's cozy, it's magical, and it's a little bit chaotic. So I don't think Home Alone just passes the holiday atmosphere test. I think it actually sets the curve. But that obviously being said, I'd love to hear your thoughts about Home Alone. And if you have none, I'd love to hear your thoughts about A Christmas Story.
Yeah, so Home Alone is definitely again from minute one you've got the John Williams score, so it feels like Christmas because Williams score is bringing the heat. But Home Alone is definitely more glossy and it's sort of more cinematic. I guess in some ways, Chris Columbus really nailed it with the look and feel of that film. And it's got a lot of iconic settings like that house that's up in the Chicagoland suburbs. I think it might be in Winnetka, but people go to visit that house all the
Okay.
time. It stands there as an iconic memorial to people's love of that movie. I guess when I look at A Christmas Story, what interests me about it is that, yeah, it's set during it's set in the Midwest in the 1940s, but a lot of what you see there, while it might be a tad outdated, in terms of culture today, a lot of the elements that go into the holiday are still around, right? It's so specific in its setting that it can't help but still be relatable all these years later, even though a lot of the toys that are in A Christmas Story are not the same toys that you play with today. There's rotary phones that are happening instead of cell phones. But, you know, and even if malls are not as big as they once were, we still have mall Santas that people go
Mhm.
to. One of my friends, his dad was my high school principal, and now late in life he's turned into a department store Santa, which is awesome.
Amazing.
It's fun to,
What a
and he went to
career
Santa
trajectory.
school. Yeah, you go to Santa school and it's a whole thing. Anyway, I think it captures that the department stores, the parades, the house they live in is nothing. It's not as spectacular as the McAllister's house in Home Alone, and I don't think they make as much money as Mr. McAllister,
Yeah, they're
which
not
we
flying
still
off
don't
to
know what
Paris.
he does. What
Yeah.
does he do? I think he works for the mob. Like they
I
never
mean,
say he's loaded though, or he's got like a
until
trust fund or
until
something.
someone proves that he doesn't work for the mob, I think that's a safe assumption. So
I
much
think,
money. First class to Paris on, in the holidays, like that plane ticket alone.
yeah, they're swimming in it. But the house in A Christmas Story is much more modest. It's got a radiator that doesn't work to
Mhm.
quite comedic effect with the dad trying to fix it and getting frustrated. I mean, the neighborhood, the school. I think about the small rituals that are in play there. Like writing letters to Santa, flipping through catalogs, like pressing your face against like a window pane
Mhm.
as you see all the cool toys in there. The atmosphere of the holidays in A Christmas Story is more tactile and intimate than Home Alone. I think you don't just see Christmas in A Christmas Story, you inhabit it, you're living it.
I that's damn you is all I can say. That's a hell of an argument because I'm like sitting here thinking like, how do I push back on that? And I can't. You're right. You can feel the texture of Christmas in A Christmas Story, whereas Home Alone, you're almost just observing, right? In Christmas Story, you feel like you're there. So okay, all right. So I don't think we're going to score category by category, but I think if we did, I think we give that one to you, John.
All
So
right.
we'll go next to family dynamics. right? Christmas movies rise and fall on the families at the center of them. They're not perfect families, they're real families, the messy ones, the loud ones, the ones that love each other even when they're driving each other crazy. This category is about how honestly each movie depicts the beautiful chaos of family. So, when it comes to family dynamics and holiday films, I have one word for you: McAllister. You say that word, that name, to anyone who has seen Home Alone even once, and maybe people who haven't, and instantly they're back in that house. Kids running around, siblings bickering, parents drowning in luggage and to do lists, that electric pre trip panic buzzing through every room. It's chaos, but it feels like a joyful chaos. It's the kind that feels painfully, hilariously recognizable. So Home Alone doesn't pretend that families are calm or perfectly coordinated during the holidays. It shows the real stuff: arguments, exhaustion, Fuller wetting the bed, moments where everybody kind of snaps back at each other because they're stressed out and tired. I mean, if you think about it, and I'm going to get ahead of here to the quote section of this argument, look what you did, you little jerk. I mean, if that, there's a whole other separate family dynamic about the uncle saying that to his nephew. But I mean, that just goes to show like the boiling point that they had reached pre Paris trip. So, you think about all of that. That's the first 15 minutes of the film, right? And then you think about that, balancing it with Kevin's mom's journey back home. It's frantic, determined. She's full of guilt and love. Those emotions that I think all parents feel around the holidays, whether we've left our kids home alone or not. So, when Kevin wishes his family would disappear, you get it, right? And when he finally realizes how much he misses them and he wants them home, you also feel that. I just think in doing that, Home Alone nails this like messy, beautiful truth of what family feels like at Christmas. It's like, I'm so glad you're all here. Please get away from me. And so to me, I think that is, you know, maybe that's just me and my family, but I think that's a more universal feeling than people will admit. And for that reason, I think the family dynamics in Home Alone support it being characterized as the holiday film of the year. Sorry, I'm going to redo that line is bad. I think that dynamic between pulling your family towards you and pushing them away at the same time is absolutely a reflection of what holiday films show you when it comes to family dynamics. And I think the point for this one should be with Home Alone.
Interesting. I mean, it's a bold argument to say that Home Alone has better family dynamics when the family is gone after the first 15 minutes. They forgot him. They failed. Whereas in Christmas Story, the family is all together the whole movie, and they are bouncing off of each other in ways that are both deeply recognizable and touching, right? So I think of like the characters we have in the Parker clan in A Christmas Story. You've got the dad who's like gruff, but he's compassionate and he's competitive and he hates the furnace. He hates the neighbor's dogs. He you know times himself 4 minutes for the tire change and takes pride in trying to do that. But he's got that pride in being a major award winner. It's ridiculous, but it's human, right? Like we've all
Mhm.
gotten overly excited about something that maybe in the grand scheme of things isn't that important. But at all times throughout that movie, he's not a punchline, right? Like he's a person who celebrates little triumphs in the middle of a hard winter. Right. And I think that's something that we can all recognize and relate to in terms of the family. And then the mom, Mrs. Parker, she's very warm. She's sly, like when she she breaks the leg lamp accidentally. She's resourceful, and she kind of like shows up when she needs to. Like when Ralphie gets in the big fight with Scott Farkus, and loses his glasses. She kind of hides it under the table and gives it to him later, not making a big deal in front of Dad, so he doesn't get in trouble. And then I really like, I love the sibling relationships with the McAllisters in Home Alone, especially Buzz and Kevin. But it's very antagonistic, and Ralphie and Randy also have kind of a brotherly antagonism. Like in the first few
Mhm.
minutes, they're fighting, trying to get dressed in the morning. But there's a certain like sibling dynamic and chaos that I think mirrors similarly what's in Home Alone, but it's the kid logic and their rivalries and like the snowsuit struggle that Randy has, where I can't put my arms down. I mean, that's all great. And then what seals the deal for me with the family dynamics in A Christmas Story is the beat at the end where, the whole movie Ralphie has wanted that Red Ryder BB gun. And everybody's been telling him, you'll shoot your eye out. Even the department store, Santa, his teacher, his mom. Finally, all the presents have been given. They're kind of chilling out. And the dad is like, hey, I think there's something over there. And this was always the most exciting part for me, like on
Hmm.
Christmas morning, where
Oh yeah,
there's that
absolutely.
one extra gift, like that
Yes.
it's out in the garage, and it's usually like the best one. And what's so cool about that is that the whole movie, he's actually seen what his child has wanted more than anything. And all the objections that people have had to it, he sees beyond that. And it's just there's not like a big speech he gives, like, you finally deserve this. It's just like, I
Hmm.
see you, Ralphie. I know you wanted this. I know how important it is to you. I'm going to get it for you because I'm a good dad at the end of the day. And it's just that small, meaningful gesture that means the world to Ralphie. And, in narration, he's still thinking about it 40 years later as the best Christmas. So with Home Alone, I'll say this, that it values, presence after absence, right? Like
Hmm.
being connected and realizing you didn't realize what you had while you had it, right? But
Yeah.
like A Christmas Story is about the quiet constancy of imperfect love that's present all along.
All right. I think yeah, I'm it's a close call, and I'm not the judge here, obviously, but you made a really compelling argument. And why don't we jump into the next category, which is a little bit less emotional, but both of these are absolute, regardless of whether a listener considers one or the other a definitive Christmas movie, nobody can think about these movies and say they're not hilarious and not immensely quotable. And I think that's the thing about both of these films too, is earlier today I was thinking through this. I don't know don't know a single person who doesn't like both of these movies. I see so many movies, John. I see movies. People are critical. I loved it. I hated it. This was good. This was bad. People love Home Alone. People love A Christmas Story. I'm sure there's someone somewhere listening, rolling their eyes right now, saying, I hate those films. But I think they need to
Yeah.
turn that mirror inward and look at themselves rather than these incredible films. So, next category, comedy and quotability. This is pure joy. Can a movie make you laugh? Will people still be quoting it 20, 30, 40 years later? Christmas movies stick around because they're fun to revisit. And I would say the humor is a huge part of that. So, thinking of Home Alone, it's unstoppable, right? Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, they're not doing slapstick. It is like full on comedic ballet, right? Every single thing that they do, every movement, the timing, the yelping, the physical insanity of all of it. It's like Olympic caliber comedy, and it works every single time you watch it. I swear, I laugh. One of the hardest times I laugh every year is when the tarantula is on his chest and he swings the crowbar at him.
Mm.
I've seen it 100 times. It never gets less funny. Then you think about the quotes, right? This movie is a holiday soundboard. Keep the change, you filthy animal. Buzz, your girlfriend, Wolf. Guys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. And of course, as I said earlier, look what you did, you little jerk. So I think you've got, top to bottom, probably a dozen other quotes that aren't coming to mind at this moment that if I sat down and thought about it would be at the ready. And then you add, from a comedic perspective, you add John Candy, right? Who just happens to show up late in the second act, like a Christmas angel. He's given improv about being a polka band. Every single thing that he does in those scenes is like comedic comfort food. Then we have our aftershave scream, maybe the single most iconic shot in Christmas movie history. Home Alone isn't just funny, it's endlessly requotable, and it's woven into the way that we talk about the holidays. And before I turn it over to you, because I know you're going to have an incredible set of quotes and comedic points to make, I was thinking about this when I was putting together my notes for today's episode. And something that always jumped out at me is, and I'm sure you know this being your love of film, but Buzz's girlfriend, of the famous Buzz Your Girlfriend Wolf quote. I had heard years ago that Chris Columbus felt like it would have been mean to put a picture of an actual young girl in that frame and have that reaction from Kevin. And so they found a boy, they put a girl's wig on him and took a picture and put it in the frame. And I think, those of you who know Chris Columbus movies, the guy was like the children whisperer, right? You think Harry Potter, other things like that. So I just thought, like, you know what? This guy's making a movie. The purpose is to get laughs. But he stopped in that little moment of kindness and was like, you know what? I don't want some young woman, young girl to be memorialized as, Buzz, your girlfriend, Wolf. So wanted to call that out here. Did you know that about that picture?
I did. No,
Look at
that's a good
that.
factoid.
Look at that. I'm the
I'm learning
I'm the
something
captain
new
now,
on
John.
this podcast.
I'm the captain now. All
You
right.
are.
So your turn. Let's hear about Christmas Story and comedy and quotes.
Well, and you're not going to get me to argue that Home Alone isn't funny because it is. And you may just win on that merit alone. Because at the end of the day, comedy is subjective. But I do find both of these movies funny. And what I like about A Christmas Story, what I'll say about it is that when you watch it as a kid, there are obviously situational things that Ralphie and Randy and Schwartz and Flick get into that are funny, like on their face from a kid logic, like the soap in the mouth and the flagpole again. The leg lamp was always funny. The Chinese restaurant carol at the end, racially insensitive as it might be these
Didn't
days.
age well, but
Um, didn't age well, but it's still, I mean, it's still kind of funny. But that's what you laughed at as a kid, I guess. And then, watching it now, I just watched it on the plane ride coming back from Dallas this morning to prep for today. And what I was taken with is that when you watch it as an adult, you're really clued into the parents' point of view a lot more. And so you're
yeah.
watching the movie from their lens, and it's a whole different kind of comedy. It sort of reveals itself in a different way, the humor in it. And so you find a lot of things in there that maybe you weren't laughing at as a kid, and now it just transcends time, and now you're laughing at different things as an adult, which is kind of cool. I think Home Alone, you're laughing at what you found funny back in the day is still funny today, like the tarantula,
Yes.
But and I won't go through all the quotes. I do like, oh fudge. And the one I wrote down on this go around is only one thing in the world could have dragged me away from the soft glow of electric sex gleaming in the window.
It's so good. I watched it. So I watched the Christmas Story last night to prepare, and that quote like never doesn't land.
Especially
So
when
good.
it's coming from Ralphie,
Yes.
well, you're thinking of it's the adult Ralphie narrating, but like Ralphie in the moment is thinking that
Yes.
too because he keeps
Right.
touching the
It made
leg.
it imprinted on him in a way that he's describing later in that way, and it's just
Yeah,
it is hilarious.
I just like he keeps trying to touch and go up the, and his mom's like, "Stop it, Ralphie!" But yeah, and the other thing we say, my brothers and I, is tonight, it's coming tonight, hot damn tonight. So that's maybe not as famous, but that one definitely in our family has stood the test of time. So
I
I
think
don't know. It's a tough call on this one. I think we need a third party, or I'll give this one to you, but
all
I
right,
think
well,
it's
I
it's
appreciate
a
it. That was a mistake
here.
because the next one's mine, guaranteed. So,
Okay.
next category is emotional core. Right? We get into the heart of it. The holidays are about heart, love, family. So you have to have heart in your holiday film. And so, every Christmas movie, I think, either has it authentically or tries to have that one moment, that one conversation, that one piece of honesty that they want to sneak up on you and remind you of why these stories matter, why the holidays are so memorable and special. Some movies I think kind of miss the mark and they hit you over the head with it. But I do think both Home Alone and Christmas Story land the plane. And so this category is about what is the movie saying underneath all that wrapping paper. So listen, Home Alone, I mean, this is why this is my choice. When we talk about the emotional core of Home Alone, it's easy to get distracted by the traps and the chaos and the wet bandits getting absolutely demolished. But underneath all of that, there's this beating heart that gives the movie its staying power. And to me, and again, this is something that you talked a moment ago about the parents and that perspective in A Christmas Story. As I've gotten older, I think Old Man Marley has become like my favorite character in the movie. And he wasn't always, I kind of paid a little bit of attention to him and I was like, "Oh, this is boring stuff." And as I've gotten older, I just every single time I watch that movie, I mean, I get a lump in my throat when he's on screen and talking about his life. That church scene. It's one of the most beautiful moments in any Christmas movie. You've got this little boy who feels forgotten and this older man who feels like he's gone too far to make things right. Two people who are lonely in totally different ways, sitting side by side in a quiet church while a children's choir sings carols. I mean, is it manipulative? Absolutely. But does it work? That's the question. And the answer is absolutely. And so they just talk honestly and gently and without judgment. Kevin admits he's scared. Marley admits he's heartbroken. And somehow they give each other courage in that moment. And there's something so pure about that. Like there's two generations on opposite ends of life, reminding each other that it's never too late to reach out, too late to try again, and never too late to come home. But the emotional depth isn't just in that conversation. To me, it's also Kevin's entire journey. His wish to be alone comes from feeling unseen and misunderstood, which we've all felt as children. And then they get that moment where he gets his wish, and it's like, this is amazing and it's fun until it's not. He goes from thrilled to lonely to brave to humbled. And by the time his family comes home, he's not the same kid who wished them away. He's grown and he's learned to appreciate what he had, flaws and all. So then you take all of that, which is amazing, and you add that final scene that's happening across the street. Kevin looks out the window. He sees old man Marley embracing his son and his granddaughter, and a whole entire relationship is repaired because he found the courage just to try. There's no big speech, there's no dramatic music, swell. There's just a simple reunion in the snow, and it's tender, it's quiet, and it hits you right in the chest. That is the emotional core of Home Alone. It's about forgiveness. It's about second chances. It's about the hope that even after mistakes and misunderstandings, we can all still find our way back to each other. And that's what makes this more than just another funny Christmas movie. It's a story with heart that grows with you. It's a little sweeter and a little deeper every single time you watch it. So that's me dropping the mic on the emotional core of Home Alone. What do you got?
Ah! Here's what I'll say about this. You like that Marley character, but then in the Home Alone 2, they clearly wanted to take that Marley character and they did the pigeon lady and it
Yeah,
sucks. And
we're
so
not going to talk about the
we
pigeon lady.
yeah, but it all stems from Marley. So you can't have Pigeon Lady without Marley, and so they go hand in hand. And so if you like Marley, you like the Pigeon Lady, and that's why emotional core fails for Home Alone.
Not your best argument, but I will agree that Old Man Marley walked so Pigeon Lady could run. I will agree with that.
That's probably true. Yeah, I think there's more of a obviously Kevin has more of an arc in Home Alone. I think his mom has more of an arc. So if we're going by emotional character arcs, there's more to play with in Home Alone for sure.
Yeah, like you said earlier, and not to
But
interrupt you, but a Christmas Story is vignettes, right? It's more these snapshots of that season versus here's an
yep,
evolution of one or more characters.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's what we're boiling it down to, right? It's a tableau Christmas story with multiple impressionistic views of the holiday season versus a an actual more of a through line story where one person starts one way at point A and gets to point B with through a lot of trials and tribulations and bad guy beatings. But, I think what I'll say about the emotional core of A Christmas Story is that it's just like it's warmth and small recognition. It's a quieter kind of emotion in A Christmas Story that's happening, but it's warm and it's nostalgic. And for many, I think that nostalgia is what makes it more lasting from an
Yeah.
emotional core
So it's
point of
less
view.
about the emotional core of the characters. It's more about the way that the movie resounds with the emotional core of the viewer, I think is what you're saying. Is that a fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Thank you
I
for
still
putting
win that
words in my
category.
mouth
So,
and helping me.
okay. Nice. All right.
Okay.
All right. Our last category is rewatchability and cultural impact. So, a definitive Christmas movie isn't something you watch once, obviously. It's something you return to every year. It becomes part of the season, part of your family's routine, part of the culture. So, when it comes to rewatchability and cultural impact, Home Alone is basically the holiday season's first brick in the foundation. It's, at least for myself and my family, it is the movie that so many of us put on the moment Thanksgiving is over. It's like a signal flare that says, all right, holidays have begun. And part of that magic is that it works for absolutely everyone. Kids lock in on Kevin's adventure, adults see their younger selves in him and their current selves in the parents, and grandparents are connecting with the warmth and nostalgia that are woven throughout the whole thing. Culturally, it's everywhere. The music, the quotes, the scream, the house, like you mentioned, and well, Matt, I've visited myself personally. All of it has become shorthand for Christmas. So you see one frame and instantly you know where you are. You can drop into the movie at any point and you still feel that full Christmas charge. So Home Alone isn't just rewatchable. To me, it's ritual, it's tradition, and it's part of the fabric and how we start the holidays.
It's funny, like I think I would make a similar argument about A Christmas Story being
Yeah.
ritualistic, right? Like that thing is a tradition. I've already talked about the annual marathons that are on like the 24-hour marathons on cable, but it basically turned A Christmas Story into everyone's like ongoing background music or fireplace, digital
Oh,
fireplace
yeah.
for the holiday itself. I mean, we talked about the vignettes, but you basically can drop in and out of that movie at any point, and you can get what you want from that particular scene, and then be like, "I'm good, okay, and now let's go
Yeah.
bake some cookies again," and then come back to it, and then the rhythm is so constant and continuous, and
Yeah.
that it's easy to do that. The other thing I'll say about cultural impact is just the iconography of that movie. I mean, you talked about Home Alone and Kevin and his his aftershave, which was ubiquitous in the marketing for the movie and on the poster. I mean, if you see the leg lamp, if you see a pink bunny costume, if you see, you know, anybody daring to put their tongue on a pole, you'll shoot your eye out. I mean, these are ingrained in pop culture for all of time. Like there's no other movie you'll think of when you do that. And so that's another bee in its bonnet. And finally, I think, you know, I'll just say this: both are seasonal staples. Families can make traditions out of both of them, but A Christmas Story for me is the one that feels like home. Less an event, more of just a an iconic ritualistic need for the season.
Okay.
You got to do
So
it.
we're going to do closings here in a minute, but I want to give our listeners a little bit of a cinematic palate cleanser. But before we do, I've got to ask you, you mentioned watching A Christmas Story on the plane this morning. Is this your first time watching it this season?
Yep.
And have you seen Home Alone yet this season?
I have not. No.
I was hoping that was going to be my gotcha moment of the podcast, but all right. Well,
Ah.
um, we'll edit that out
So,
later.
because right, there's only one movie you watch every holiday, and it's A Christmas Story. Home Alone, I can come back to every 5 years, but
Well, I
I'm
doubt
just
that
kidding.
very much. I doubt that very much. All right. So real quick, we're going to zoom out. Like I said, we're going to set aside these two heavyweights of the holiday season. And I want to talk about a couple other quick movies. This is going to be all you, right? As our film guru. I'm going to throw some titles at you. Give me 30 seconds telling me why it wasn't your choice today. And you can also feel free to talk about why it's great. But we're going to start quickly. I've got 6 movies. We're going to start with Elf.
So Elf is probably the closest, the most recent instant classic we've had on the Christmas side,
Mm-hmm.
apart from Froyo, maybe.
Oh yeah, Froyo.
But Elf it's almost, I don't want to say it's too new because it's going on like 22 years old now
Yeah.
at this point. But
Yes.
something about it still feels kind of new to me, and the Will Ferrell of it. I think you could easily make a case. It's a joy to watch that one. I love like the Rankin Bass,
Oh yeah.
you know, animated tribute early on in the production design. Great movie. I don't know. I'm not going to knock Elf. It's one of my
Yeah, and I
favorites.
don't. By the way, I don't. I'm not looking for you to knock these. I just kind of wanted to make a moment, take a moment, and just acknowledge these films, right? Because yeah, I think today we're talking about Home Alone and A Christmas Story, but these other ones, you know, it's not the holiday season without them. So I'm going to go to the next one, which I think were a bit more family friendly. May have been my choice, but I think if it were a bit more family friendly, it wouldn't be what it is, and that's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Great film. My favorite of the vacation movies, and you know, written by John Hughes. So there's a lot of like Home Alone
Mhm.
sort of not pedigree, but like groundwork being laid, I think, in Christmas Vacation with the chaos of the families coming over. I can see, you know, Hughes just has trademarks in all of his scripts that you can identify as being solely him, and I think there is a lot of overlap there. So if you like Home Alone, I could see you liking Christmas Vacation.
Absolutely. All right, It's a Wonderful Life.
Overrated. Definitely foundational. It's not my favorite. I think it's too long. It's a little dull in spots, but it's obviously like earned its reputation as a classic, and I just don't watch it as much as I should. I think I've probably seen it maybe 3 times in my life, so it's not
Okay.
a tradition or a ritual for me.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot, and it definitely has that kind of saccharine, you know, third act, and you're just like, gosh, the holidays are the best. And you know, I think it's talk about emotional core, right? I think probably A Christmas Story, if you sit down and live in it, it probably would, in my opinion, surpass the emotional core of Home Alone and A Christmas Story. But beyond that, right, you're not laughing, you're not quoting it necessarily, and you know, it is definitely one of those movies that I think has been kind of replaced in the rotation of holiday films for a lot of modern families. So next up, we've got the Santa Claus.
Ooh, never been my jam. It came out when I was living in Dubai. So, you know, I think I saw it on like for the first time on like somebody had filmed in a movie theater. And so it was super grainy. And
Yeah,
I've seen it since then, but I'm always going to identify that initial viewing of it. So it's fine.
okay,
Look,
that's fine.
it's fine.
All right,
That's
how
my
about
hot take on the Santa Claus.
that's fine. That's that's a viable take. Muppet Christmas Carol.
Here we go. The best movie version of A Christmas Carol, the best Scrooge that's ever been put on film. Michael Caine is so good in that role because he acts like he doesn't even treat the Muppets as Muppets, right?
This is a whole other podcast, which I'm sure someone somewhere has addressed. But what about Die Hard? Is it a Christmas movie?
Totally is. Actually, this year I bought a Die Hard Christmas sweater that's Nakatomi Plaza on fire,
Okay,
and then it says Yippee Ki on the back. But it's a
nice.
holiday sweater that's Die Hard. So right then and there, it's definitely a Christmas movie. Die Hard
Okay.
is the best action movie ever made. It's not the best Christmas movie ever made or the most definitive, but it is a Christmas movie.
All right. Well, now that we've cleansed our palates, why don't we jump into closing statements, and we'll do that, and then we're going to try to wrap this up here in the next 10 minutes. Um, so yeah, ladies and gentlemen of the listening jury, when I look at Home Alone, what strikes me isn't the comedy or the chaos or the traps, though all of that unforgettable. What gets me is how completely this movie understands what the holidays truly feel like: the excitement, the noise, frustration, the longing to be seen, the relief of being forgiven. It takes all these tiny emotional threads we associate with Christmas, and somehow it weaves them into a story about an 8-year-old who thinks he wants independence until he realizes what he really wants is connection. We watch Kevin go from defiant to terrified to brave to tender, and by the end, he's learned something adults spend decades trying to figure out, which is family's messy and imperfect and absolutely irreplaceable. Kevin's parents aren't perfect. He isn't perfect, but they find each other again. And when that door opens on Christmas morning, there is nothing complicated about it. It's just love. Then you look across the street to our old friend, Old Man Marley, who spent years believing he was too late to make things right, stepping back into his family's arms. No speeches, no spotlight, just a quiet reunion in the show. That's the soul of Home Alone. The idea that no matter how far we drift, whether it's across the ocean or across a misunderstanding, there is always a path home. And to me, that's what Christmas is. And that's why Home Alone is the definitive Christmas movie.
All right.
I'll give you
All
a second to
right.
stop crying and then you can
You
go.
set it up. Now, now imagine it's white. A white Christmas after you close your eyes. That's my time to kill reference for the day.
I,
Okay.
you nailed it.
Christmas Story. It is the definitive Christmas movie, and it wins against Home Alone, not by being bigger or louder or more frantic or more spectacular, but by being truer to the textures of winter, the awkward joys of childhood, and the modest way families show love. Its comedy is quotable. That's undeniable. Its images are iconic, and its emotions are perennial. Where Home Alone gives you an exhilarating roller coaster, undeniably, A Christmas Story gives you a snow quiet neighborhood and a warm living room. And that's the exact place many of us want to be during the holidays.
Well done. Very nice. All right. So
That's all
rather
I
than
got.
you and I toil through, I think we've pled our cases. I think we let people decide. If you're going to listen to this on Spotify, I'm going to embed a poll. If people want to vote on which of the two is their
Yes.
favorite. Before we go, I've got 5 rapid fire holiday movie questions for you, John. No overthinking, just shoot from the hip. Favorite holiday film,
Yep.
needle drop.
I think my favorite is in Gremlins when we cut from Chinatown, the little prologue at the beginning, and then
Mm-hmm.
Baby Please Come Home, like smash cuts on the soundtrack with
Yeah.
the
Deep
Gremlins
cut, by the
title.
way. Deep cut.
Favorite needle trap.
Most overrated Christmas movie.
White Christmas. It's not even a Christmas movie,
All
yet
right. I
everybody
think
treats it like it is. It's got like
yeah,
one scene.
you can't just put the name in there, right? The name
No.
Christmas and expect people to treat it as a Christmas film. All right. Most underrated Christmas movie.
This is a new one, and it doesn't immediately come to mind when we talk about Christmas movies, but The Holdovers is actually an awesome Christmas movie, and it's only 2 years old at this point, but it needs to be in the conversation as
Yeah.
as a traditional Christmas movie that people return to.
Yeah. Giamatti is incredible in it. Absolutely incredible. All right. One holiday movie you wish that more people watched.
This may just be a Hammerly tradition. I remember seeing this in the theater. We always go see a movie on Christmas Eve, but Ernest Saves Christmas should be watched by more
That is
people. It's
on, that
actually
is,
pretty good. And if for my money, it's the best Ernest. It's the best Ernest movie by far, by far.
that's a separate podcast. We'll rank the definitive Ernest films. All right. Last question. So
Okay.
you get to watch one Christmas movie for the rest of your life. That's it. What is it?
It would not be a Christmas movie. I'm going to cheat here. It would be a TV show, Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas Special is my favorite Christmas related content of all time. I watch it every year. It's got the best guest stars. I love Pee Wee Herman. It's so campy and hilarious and just it's high art. It's the greatest Christmas movie, TV show, music, whatever. It's my favorite. I couldn't live without
So
it.
is for our listeners, and I'm sure I've seen it, probably been a long time. Is it streaming anywhere?
It might be on Netflix actually. And if
Okay.
it is, it's like 50 minutes of pure joy. And you'll laugh. The guest stars are just a snapshot of like 1987 or 1988, and it you can't like Whoopi, Oprah, Katie Lang. I mean, Magic Johnson, Annette, and Frankie. It's glorious, dude. You gotta
All
watch it.
right. I got to find it. I may have seen it, but I definitely need to go back and re-see it because I don't remember much of it. So, all right. Well, listen, before we wrap up here, I wanted to let our listeners know that if you're curious about the film Froyo that I mentioned earlier that John and I made together, maybe 10, 12 years ago. It's a short film. It's about the holidays. We crib from a lot of the classics, including Elf, but I think it's worthwhile. I know we had so much fun making it, John, and I would love to share it with anybody who's interested. So I'm going to put the link to it on YouTube in the comment section of this podcast. So, John, with that, I just want to say thank you so much, man, for being here. It's great to see you. Always so much fun talking with you, especially about movies. Any holiday wishes you want to give before we wrap up?
I wish everybody has a happy holiday season, and I also wish that we get rid of some of the snow and cold and wind that has hit Chicago of
Yeah.
late, because I think January is going to be a real rough one.
Yeah. Way too early in the season for all the weather we've been having. So, well, John, listen, thanks for being here. This has been the first ever Versus episode of the Case For. If you want any more Versus episodes, let me know. And please let us know as members of our listener jury where your vote falls, Home Alone or Christmas Story or somewhere else. And no matter what movie makes your holiday season memorable, enjoy it with the people you love. If you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with family and friends or on social media if you're willing. The Case For is a relatively young podcast, and while word is spreading, every new listener matters. Thanks for listening. See you next time.